The police siren cut through the silence of the public library at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night. Margaret Foster, 71 years old, retired teacher for 3 years, was organizing books in the young adult literature section when she saw the boy run in. He was about 16, too thin for his height, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. His hands trembled as he hid between the shelves, his face marked by a recent bruise on his left eye. His sneakers were so worn that Margaret could see his toes through the holes. The police cruiser passed by the window, sirens fading into the distance. The boy let out a sigh of relief, then realized he wasn't alone. His eyes met Margaret's, and there was something in that look she recognized immediately. It wasn't just fear, it was surrender. It was the look of someone who had already decided they weren't worth trying for. "The library closes in 10 minutes, Margaret said calmly, not moving from where she stood. The boy didn't respond, he just started to turn to leave. "But," Margaret continued, "I usually stay an extra half-hour organizing. If you want to stay here in the warmth, you can help me put these books back on the shelves." The boy stopped. He turned slowly, suspicion in every line of his young face. "Why?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "You don't even know me." "No," Margaret agreed. "But I know that look. I've seen it 1,000 times in 42 years of teaching. It's the look of someone who needs a safe place, even if just for half an hour." She pushed a stack of books toward him. "Science fiction section. Alphabetical order by author. Think you can handle it?" The boy looked at the books, then at Margaret, then at the door. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he picked up the stack of books. "My name is Margaret," she said gently, "but you can call me Mrs. Foster, if you prefer. That's what my students always did." "I'm not your student," he mumbled. "Not yet," Margaret said with a small smile. They worked in silence for 20 minutes. Margaret watched discreetly as the boy organized the books with surprising care, reading the titles, sometimes stopping to read a synopsis. His hands stopped trembling. His shoulders relaxed minimally. "Do you like to read?" Margaret asked casually. The boy shrugged. "Used to. Before." "Before what?" Silence then, so quietly she almost didn't hear. "Before my mum died." Margaret felt her heart clench but kept her voice steady. "When was that?" 8 months ago. Cancer." He placed another book on the shelf. "The movement's mechanical. Now it's just me and my stepdad, and he doesn't really like having me around." The bruise on his eye, the destroyed sneakers, the hands that trembled. Margaret understood perfectly. "What's your name?" she asked. "Devon," he said after hesitating. "Devon Mitchell." "Devon," Margaret repeated, savoring the name. "That means poet in ancient Gaelic. Did your mother know that when she named you?" Devon looked at her, surprised. I don't know, maybe." "I bet she did," Margaret said. "Mothers always know things about their children that they don't even know about themselves yet." Devon turned his face away, but not before Margaret saw his eyes glisten. When they finished, Margaret locked up the library, and the two stood outside under the dim streetlight. Devon stuffed his hands in his pockets, clearly not knowing where to go. "Devon," Margaret said, "I'll be here tomorrow night. Same time. There are always books to organize. The work pays in sandwiches and hot chocolate, and in a warm, safe place." Devon stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" Margaret thought of all the answers she could give. She thought of the 42 years of teaching, of the thousands of students who had passed through her classroom, of the ones she saved and the ones she couldn't save. She thought of the 16-year-old boy 35 years ago who had jumped from the school roof on a Tuesday morning because no one noticed he needed help. "Because," she said simply, "I'm still a teacher. And you, Devon Mitchell, are still a student. Even if you're not in a classroom." Devon said nothing. But the next night, at 9 p.m., he showed up. It became routine. Every Thursday night, Devon appeared at the library. At first, they just organized books in silence, but gradually, Devon started to talk. Small things first. About his mother, about how she used to read to him every night, even when he was already 14 and should have been too old for it. About how his stepdad started drinking more after she died. About how home wasn't safe anymore. Margaret listened. She didn't offer unsolicited advice or empty platitudes. She just listened, the same way she had listened to thousands of teenagers over decades. And while she listened, she observed. Devon was brilliant. She could see it in the way he absorbed information, how he made connections between ideas, how his eyes lit up when he found a book that interested him. But he was failing at school. Obviously failing. He didn't always show up. When he did, he was too tired, too traumatized, too hungry to concentrate. "Devon," Margaret said one night, a month after that first meeting, Can I ask you a question? He looked at her with suspicion, but nodded. What do you want to be? Not now. Not in this impossible situation you're in. But if everything were possible, if the world were fair, what would you dream of doing? Devon was quiet for so long that Margaret thought he wouldn't answer. Then, so low it was almost a whisper, architect. I wanted to design buildings, create spaces where people felt safe and happy, where they belonged. He let out a bitter laugh. But that's stupid. I'm barely passing. I can barely show up to school, an architecture school. Not in a million years could I. What if I told you, Margaret interrupted, that you could, that it's not too late, that you're brilliant enough, strong enough, capable enough? I'd say you were crazy, Devon replied, but there was hope in his voice. Fragile hope, but present. Then call me crazy, Margaret said, because that's exactly what I'm going to prove to you. Margaret didn't waste time. The next morning, she was in the office of Devon's school principal, armed with decades of experience and a determination that made administrators tremble. He's missing school because he's in an abusive home situation, she told Principal Harrison directly. A middle-aged man who seemed more interested in budgets than students. And instead of helping him, you're ready to give up on him, Mrs. Foster, the principal sighed. With all due respect, you've been retired for 3 years. You don't know the full situation. I know enough, Margaret cut in. I know a brilliant boy who's drowning because nobody threw him a rope. I know a future architect who is about to be swallowed by a system that should be protecting him. She leaned forward. And I know the law. If you don't report suspected abuse, I will. And I'll make sure every newspaper in the region knows that this school failed Devon Mitchell. Principal Harrison went pale. That's ... You can't just. I can, and I will. Margaret opened her purse and pulled out a folder. But I'd prefer to do this the right way. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to report the situation to Child Protective Services. You're going to assign a social worker. And you're going to give Devon Mitchell every academic tutoring he needs to catch up on his grades. And who's going to pay for all of this? The principal asked, irritated. I will, Margaret said simply. I'll tutor Devon personally, at no cost to the school. All I need from you is cooperation and basic humanity. It took 2 weeks for social services to remove Devon from his stepfather's house, 2 weeks that felt like an eternity. But Margaret was there every night, waiting at the library, making sure Devon had at least one safe place to go. When it finally happened, Devon was placed with a foster family. It wasn't perfect, these situations never were, but it was safe. There was food, there was a room of his own, there were expectations, structure, and above all, there was peace. Now, Margaret said to Devon on the first Thursday after the move, let's get to work, and they worked. 3 times a week. Margaret tutored Devon math, science, English, history. She discovered he had lost almost 2 years of fundamentals because of the chaos at home. But he was so hungry for knowledge, so determined to prove he could do this. Why are you doing all of this? Devon asked one night, months later, as they solved trigonometry problems. You don't owe me anything. You didn't even know me. Margaret put down her pen and looked at him, really looked at him. The thin, scared boy who hid between bookshelves had transformed. He had gained weight. The bruise had been gone for months. But more importantly, his eyes no longer had that look of surrender. They shone with purpose. Devon, she said quietly, 35 years ago, I had a student named Marcus Webb. He was brilliant, funny, talented, but he was struggling with things I didn't see, or that I saw and didn't know how to act on. And on a Tuesday morning, Marcus jumped from the school roof. She paused, letting the old pain wash over her. After that, I made a promise. That I would never let another student fall through the cracks. That I would never ignore the signs again. That if I could make a difference in one child's life, just one, it would be worth all the pain I carried from losing Marcus. Devon's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know. You didn't need to know, Margaret said gently. You only needed to let someone help you. And Devon, you did. You showed up, night after night. You worked. You chose to keep trying even when it would have been easier to give up. That wasn't me. That was you. 2 years passed like a blur of hard work and small victories. Devon's grades improved. Not perfect, but solid. He started to smile more, to make friends, to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had a future. Margaret was there for every milestone. When Devon won his first medal on the track team, when he made his first architectural drawing, a sketch of a library, curiously similar to the one where they met, When he received the acceptance letter from a state university, not the best architecture school, but a beginning, a path, a possibility. High school graduation was in June. Margaret sat in the front row, tears flowing freely when Devon crossed the stage. He wasn't valedictorian, he had no special honors. But for Margaret, and for Devon, that diploma represented something that 2 years ago seemed impossible. After the ceremony, Devon found her in the parking lot. He was wearing a suit borrowed from his foster family, the diploma clutched in his hands. "Mrs. Foster," he said, and his voice broke, "I wouldn't have made it without you. You saved my life." Margaret shook her head gently. "No, Devon. I gave you a library and some sandwiches. You saved your own life. You chose to show up, chose to work, chose to believe you were worth trying for. That was all you. But you believed in me when no one else did," Devon whispered. "Not even myself." "Then," Margaret said, pulling him into a hug, "I guess we needed each other. You let me be a teacher again. You let me keep the promise I made to Marcus. And you reminded me why I dedicated my life to this." Devon went to college that fall. Margaret helped him move into the dormitory, carrying boxes even when her 73-year-old knees protested. She met his roommate, helped organize his desk, and when it was time to leave, she held his hands. "You're going to do incredible things," she said. "You're going to design beautiful buildings where people will feel safe. But more importantly, Devon, you're going to remember what it's like to be lost and scared. And when you find someone in that place, you're going to be the person I was for you. You're going to throw the rope." Devon nodded, unable to speak. The years passed. Devon graduated with a degree in architecture. Not at the top of his class, but respectably he got a job at a firm in Seattle. He started building a career, a life, a future that 2 years before had seemed impossible. And every year, without fail, he came back. Every Thanksgiving Thursday, Devon Mitchell showed up at the public library where it all began, and he and Margaret organized books together. They didn't need to talk much. Just being there, in the place where a retired teacher and a lost boy had met and saved each other. Asterisk, asterisk. 8 years later. Asterisk, asterisk. Margaret was 79 years old now. Her steps were slower, her hair completely white, but her eyes still had that sharp spark that frightened school administrators and inspired students. It was a Thursday night in October. Margaret was at the library, organizing books as she always did. The door opened. She expected Devon. He was in town for an architecture conference, but it wasn't Devon. It was a girl, maybe 15 years old, with frightened eyes and dirty clothes. She entered hesitantly, looking over her shoulder as if expecting to be followed. Margaret felt her heart race. She knew that look. She had seen it before. "The library closes in 10 minutes, Margaret said calmly. The girl started to turn to leave, but, Margaret continued, "I usually stay an extra half-hour organizing. If you want to stay here in the warmth, you can help me put these books back on the shelves." The girl stopped. She turned slowly. There was something in her face, confusion, hope, fear. "Why?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "No," Margaret agreed, "but I know that look." The door opened again. Devon entered, carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate, a smile spreading across his face when he saw Margaret. Then he saw the girl, and in his eyes, Margaret saw recognition, not of the girl specifically, but of the situation, of the moment, of the opportunity. Devon approached slowly, extending one of the cups to the girl. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Devon, and this is Mrs. Foster. She kind of saves lives here on Thursday nights. It's like her specialty." The girl took the hot chocolate with trembling hands. "I'm Ashley," she whispered. "Ashley," Margaret said, savoring the name. "That means from the ash tree meadow in Old English. It means place of peace. Did your mother know that when she named you?" Ashley shook her head, tears forming. "My mum, she died 3 months ago. Now it's just me and my dad, and he, ... double quotes. She didn't need to finish. Margaret and Devon already knew. "Ashley," Margaret said, "I'll be here tomorrow night. Same time. There are always books to organize. The work pays in sandwiches and hot chocolate, and in a warm, safe place. If you want to show up." Ashley looked between Margaret and Devon, something loosening in her face. Hope, fragile and scared, but present. "Okay," she whispered. After Ashley left, Devon turned to Margaret. There were tears in his eyes. "This never ends, does it?" he said. "There will always be another lost child. There will always be someone who needs help." "No," Margaret said softly, "it never ends. But we're also never alone in it. I was there when you needed me. You'll be here when Ashley needs you. And someday Ashley will be there for someone else." That's the only way we survive, Devon. We save each other. Devon nodded, wiping his eyes. Then next Thursday, I'll be here too, to help. Margaret smiled, her heart so full it hurt. I knew you would. Ashley came back, week after week. Devon was there too, flying in from Seattle every month to help. Together, they gave Ashley what Margaret had given Devon: time, attention, belief, and a safe place. The pattern repeated: social services, foster care, tutoring, small victories, setbacks, but always, always, the unwavering message: you matter, you're worth fighting for, you're not alone. 3 years passed. Ashley graduated high school. She was accepted to study social work at the same state university Devon had attended. And on the night before she left, the three of them sat in the library one last time. I want to do what you do, Ashley said to Margaret. I want to be the person who sees the invisible kids, who throws the rope. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Then you already understand the most important lesson I could ever teach you. 5 years later, Margaret Foster passed away peacefully in her sleep at age 84. Her funeral was held at the public library, the only place that made sense. More than 200 people attended, former students from 4 decades of teaching, families she had helped, lives she had touched in small and large ways. Devon gave the eulogy. Now 29 years old, he was a successful architect, but more importantly, he was mentoring 3 teenagers in foster care, helping them navigate the same challenges he had faced. Mrs. Foster taught me, Devon said, his voice echoing through the packed library, that education isn't about classrooms, it's about seeing people, really seeing them, seeing their potential even when they can't see it themselves, seeing their worth even when the world says they have none. He paused, looking at the front row where Ashley sat. Now 20 years old, she was in her 2nd year of social work school, dedicated to helping children like she had been. She taught me that we don't save people by giving them things. We save people by giving them time, attention, belief. The simple but powerful message: I see you, you matter, you deserve a safe place. And she taught me, Devon concluded, tears flowing freely now, that the greatest legacy we can leave isn't buildings or money or achievements. It's the web of transformed lives. It's the unbreakable chain of people helping people, generation after generation, each one passing forward the kindness they received. After the funeral, Devon and Ashley stood outside the library. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the building that had witnessed so many beginnings. What do we do now? Ashley asked softly. Devon smiled. We continue. Every Thursday night I come here. I organize books. I wait. Because there will always be someone who needs a safe place, and there always needs to be someone willing to offer one. Can I come too? Ashley asked. I was counting on it, Devon said. And so they entered the library, turning on the lights, preparing for Thursday night. They didn't know if anyone would come, but they would be ready. They would always be ready. Because that's what Mrs. Margaret Foster had taught them. That education doesn't stop when you get a diploma. That being a teacher isn't a job, it's a vocation, a calling, a way of life. It's the choice to see people everyone else ignores. It's the courage to reach out when it would be easier to look away. It's the stubborn belief that every life has value. Every student deserves an advocate. Every lost child deserves someone who refuses to give up on them. The years would pass. Devon and Ashley would keep coming. They would help dozens of teenagers. Some would succeed, some would fail, some would disappear, and Devon and Ashley would never know what happened to them. But they would show up, every Thursday, without fail, keeping alive the promise Margaret made so many years ago, the promise that Marcus Webb inspired with his tragic death, the promise that Devon rescued with his survival, the promise that now passed to Ashley, and someday to the next ones, and the ones after that. The simple but profound promise: no one falls through the cracks, not while there's someone willing to throw the rope, not while there are libraries with lights on Thursday nights, not while there are teachers, formal or not, who refuse to give up on the lost, the scared, the forgotten. Asterisk, asterisk. 10 years after Margaret's passing. Asterisk, asterisk. Devon Mitchell stood in front of a completed building, his most ambitious project yet. The Margaret Foster Youth Center, a beautiful, modern structure with fluted ceiling windows that flooded the interior with natural light. It had study rooms, counseling offices, a full library, and most importantly, a large common area where teenagers could just ... be safe, seen, valued. The dedication ceremony was today. Devon had invited everyone who had been part of Margaret's life. Former students, now in their 50s and 60s, who remembered her from decades ago, families she had helped, and of course, Ashley Chen. She had taken Devon's last name when he and his wife had legally adopted her 5 years ago. Stood beside him, now 30 years old, the director of the youth center. She had her Master in social work and had dedicated her life to creating the kind of safe spaces she and Devon had found in that library so many years ago. She would have loved this, Ashley said softly, looking up at the building. She did love it, Devon replied. I showed her the designs 2 weeks before she passed. She cried, said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen, not because of the architecture, but because of what it represented. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. She said, Devon, buildings don't save people, but the right building, in the right hands, can give people a place to save themselves. The ceremony began. The mayor spoke. The school superintendent spoke, but the most powerful moment came when a young man, maybe 25, stood up from the audience. My name is Marcus Webb Jr., he said, his voice shaking. My father was the student Mrs. Foster lost 35 years ago, the one who jumped from the school roof. I never knew him, but because of Mrs. Foster, I know his story, and because she refused to let his death be meaningless, she saved hundreds of others. He looked directly at Devon, including my mentor here. Devon Mitchell took me in when I was 16 and failing out of school. He saw me the way Mrs. Foster saw him. And now I'm an engineer. I helped design the structural supports for this very building. So in a way, my father is here too. His legacy, transformed into something beautiful. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. After the ceremony, Devon stood alone in the library section of the youth center. It was designed exactly like the public library where he and Margaret had met. Same layout, same feel, even some of the same books. A voice behind him. Excuse me. Devon turned. A teenage boy, maybe 15, stood there. He had that look, the one Devon knew so well. Fear, exhaustion, the belief that he wasn't worth saving. The center closes in 10 minutes, Devon said gently. The boy started to turn away. But, Devon continued, I usually stay an extra hour, making sure everything is organized. If you want to stay in the warmth, you can help me. The work pays in sandwiches and hot chocolate. The boy stopped, turned slowly. Why would you want my help? Because, Devon said, I know that look, and I know what it's like to need a safe place, even if just for an hour. The boy hesitated. What's your name? Devon Mitchell. I'm an architect. I designed this building, and once, a long time ago, I was standing exactly where you are now. What changed? The boy asked. A teacher who refused to give up on me, who saw me when I was invisible, who threw me a rope when I was drowning. Devon pulled out his phone and showed the boy a photo. Young Devon with Margaret, both smiling, holding books in the old library. That's Mrs. Foster. She saved my life, not by giving me money or fixing my problems, but by giving me time, attention, a safe place, and the message that I mattered. The boy's eyes filled with tears. I don't matter, not to anyone. You matter to me, Devon said firmly. You mattered enough for you to walk through that door. You mattered enough for me to notice you. And if you come back tomorrow night, same time, you'll matter enough for me to be here waiting. The boy wiped his eyes. My name is Jordan. Jordan, Devon repeated. That means flowing down or descender like a river. Rivers are powerful. They shape landscapes. They give life. Did your parents know that when they named you? Jordan shook his head, but something in his face had softened. Come back tomorrow, Jordan. Let me tell you a story about a teacher, a lost boy, and how one Thursday night changed everything. Asterisk. Asterisk. The next night. Asterisk. Asterisk. Jordan came back. And the night after that. And the night after that. Ashley joined them, bringing her expertise in trauma-informed care. They connected Jordan with services, got him into a safe foster home, started tutoring him. But more than that, they saw him. Really saw him, the way Margaret had seen Devon, the way Devon had seen Ashley. 6 months later, Jordan brought a friend, a girl named Maria who was couch surfing, trying to finish high school while essentially homeless. Then Maria brought her cousin, and the cousin brought a classmate. One by one, the invisible kids found their way to the Margaret Foster Youth Center, the ones falling through the cracks, the ones everyone had given up on, the ones who had given up on themselves. And one by one, Devon and Ashley and their growing team of mentors caught them. Not every story had a happy ending. Some kids disappeared, some made choices that broke everyone's hearts, some came back, some didn't, but the work continued. Every Thursday night, without fail, and slowly, A new generation of saved students became saviors themselves. Jordan, at 18, started volunteering at the center, mentoring younger kids. Maria became a teacher, specializing in at-risk youth. And so the circle grew wider and wider, touching more lives than Margaret could have ever imagined when she first saw that scared 16-year-old boy hiding in the library stacks. 20 years after Margaret's death, Devon was 49 now. Ashley was 40. The Margaret Foster Youth Center had expanded to 3 locations across the state. They had helped over 2,000 teenagers. Hundreds had gone to college. Some had become teachers, social workers, counselors. Some had become parents who broke cycles of abuse. Some had simply survived when survival had seemed impossible. On the 20th anniversary of Margaret's passing, they held a special reunion at the original library, the one where it all began. Over 300 people showed up, former students, spanning decades. Some were Margaret's students from the 1980s, now grandparents themselves. Some were Devon's mentees. Some were Ashley's success stories. All were connected by the invisible thread of one woman's refusal to give up. Devon stood at the front of the room, looking at all these faces. Lives transformed, futures reclaimed, hope restored. Margaret Foster taught me something I want to share with all of you, he began. She taught me that we don't fail when we lose a student. We fail when we stop trying. He gestured to the crowd. Every person in this room is proof that trying matters, that showing up matters, that seeing people really seeing them matters more than anything else we can do. Ashley stood up. Mrs. Foster changed the course of my life, and Devon's, and everyone's here. So tonight, I want us to make a promise. The same promise she made 55 years ago after Marcus Webb died. She held up her hand. I promise that I will not let anyone fall through the cracks, that I will see the invisible, that I will throw the rope, that I will be the safe place someone needs. One by one, every person in the room stood and repeated the promise. Teachers, social workers, mentors, former students who are now parents, professionals, leaders. The promise echoed through the library, through the years, through the unbreakable chain of human compassion. Asterisk, asterisk, present day. Asterisk, asterisk, somewhere in a small town. A retired teacher sees a scared teenager somewhere else. A young architect notices a kid who doesn't fit in another state. A social worker stops to listen to a child everyone else has dismissed. They don't know Margaret Foster, they've never heard of Devon Mitchell or Ashley Chen. They do want to know they're part of a chain that started with a tragedy 55 years ago and transformed into a legacy of hope. They just know that someone needs help, and they have an hour to spare, and a safe place to offer. So they extend their hand, they throw the rope, they turn on the lights. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Margaret Foster smiles, because the work continues. The promise is kept. The chain remains unbroken. One teacher, one student, one Thursday night, one safe place, one life saved, and then another, and another, and another, forever and always, as long as there are people who refuse to look away, who refuse to give up, who refuse to let anyone fall through the cracks. That's the legacy. Not in buildings or monuments or awards, but in the invisible web of transformed lives, connecting across time and space. Each thread a story of someone who was seen, saved, and inspired to save others. And that legacy will never die. Because compassion, once ignited, burns eternal. Passed from heart to heart, generation to generation, forever and always.
You are more than what you own. You are what you give. Follow Soul Billionaires and where love rewrites destiny, and the soul becomes the greatest fortune of all.